Is it just me, or does this not seem luxurious? Is this what you expect to be the waiting area for people who are paying this much money for a cruise? On March 18th, 2025, we left our hotel, which was the Fayak Pasha Suites in Istanbul, Turkey, a place I highly recommend staying if you're visiting the city. Check out the full video tour, I posted it a couple days ago. Hopped in a taxi and made our way down to the port to board the NCL Viva. It was a quick taxi ride to the port, and if Istanbul was flat, it would have been very walkable, but Istanbul is not flat. So we jumped in a taxi that cost 250 Turkish lira, which is around $7 US. The port feels super new and modern, like a very new strip mall with restaurants, shops, and even a Starbucks, so it feels very modern. But just across from the entrance to the port is the spectacular Nusrateva Mosque, so make sure you take a moment to check that out too. We had to search around a little bit to find the actual entrance to the port between all the shops and restaurants, but eventually, after walking in and out of the corridors, we saw a long line of frustrated people and realized, okay, I guess we found the port. We had received communication from NCL that we should not come to the port earlier than 2:30 in the afternoon, and we got there at about 2:25, so it was kind of surprising to see so many other people there, and some of them seemed like they had been waiting there for quite a while, just judging their demeanor. So I don't know if they had an earlier boarding time or if they just got there really early, but the doors to the port did not open until 2:30 on the dot. Now, just to catch you up here, if you haven't been watching the recent videos, Marcus and I are staying in the Haven on board. The Haven is NCL's ship within a ship, like luxury suite area. Staying in the Haven comes with a much higher price than the other parts of the ship, but you also are paying for a lot of very special amenities, like exclusive pool areas, an exclusive restaurant, and then things like priority boarding, priority disembarkation, priority tender embarkation. I'm looking down because we're in Mykonos right now, and the tender boats are going right over to land. And I have to say, I was a bit surprised by my first impression of getting to the port and getting on the ship. I kind of feel like it didn't go so well, and I'm gonna tell you why. But before I do that, let me introduce myself. I'm Morgan from the Very Unofficial Travel Guides. I've been making travel videos for over 15 years of popular and not so popular tourist destinations to give you a very honest, unofficial look at what it's like to be there. I'm also the author of 2 travel-related books, Getting Stitches on a Cruise Ship and Places Please. If you like to read and want to give me a little extra support, check them out on Amazon now. So back to Haven amenities. Once the line started moving, we were in several different lines that moved from several different areas of this quite large, many-leveled port building. First we waited in this area for a while, and then the line moved forward and we waited in that area for a while. Then we took the escalators down and waited in that area for a while. And it wasn't until like the third movement that somebody was walking up and down the group asking if there were people staying in the Haven. So at least that first, let's say, half an hour at the port, I don't feel like staying in the Haven gave us any advantage over everybody else. Everybody was just kind of waiting in the same line. And the next thing I thought was kind of shocking, I guess, to say in a somewhat dramatic way, I understand, but just remember, if we had paid full price for this cruise, when I checked on the website, we would have paid over $5,000 a person for this 10-night cruise. And when you consider that price point, and when you consider that that price point includes this list of things that they're basically promising you, at that point, I didn't feel like I was getting any kind of priority boarding. And then when I did get taken out of the long line and put in a shorter line, which is where we checked in our bags and were sent to a small waiting area for Haven guests. This was the waiting area. A bunch of plastic chairs haphazardly set up in this like parking garage basically, with a sign that said Haven. Is it just me, or does this not seem luxurious? Is this what you expect to be the waiting area for people who are paying this much money for a cruise? I was kind of surprised. After we waited there about 15 minutes and it filled up, a woman came to take us onto the next stop in the port, and this woman was so not motivated. Way better than me trying to describe what it was like. I'm just gonna show you what she looked like, okay? Come. She was obviously not having a good day or just not happy with her job, and she was letting everybody know it. So once we followed Miss Bad Mood across this parking garage-like area, then we entered the other side of the terminal, which was where we went through security and were finally greeted by what I guess were the first NCL employees that we met that day. So I think up until that point, we were just dealing with the local staff, and it wasn't until we crossed over and went through the second security point that we were actually in the NCL area. And from that point on, it did feel expedited. There was a separate Haven Lounge with a small table of treats and drinks. And after we took a short break to have some cold water and a little snack, one of the butlers came and picked up all the Haven guests that were waiting at that time and took us through to a supposedly expedited line to get through passport control. And I know this is gonna just sound like me complaining about every little thing, but I'm just trying to describe to you the experience as it was and point out things that I found surprising and also things that I think, okay, well, this would be really easy to fix. And this kind of was one of them. If you've ever gone through passport control or the immigrations in an airport or in a cruise port, you know what it's like. There are several lines, there are several people working there, they're checking the passports, they're looking at you, they're giving a stamp, or they're doing all those things that they do. And there was one separate line that was for Haven guests, and then the other line was for everybody else. So you would think, okay, well, this one separate line, that does feel exclusive, but because we had this one line, there was also only one person checking passports at the front, and our line was moving way slower than the other line. Because the other line, although there were more passengers boarding in that line, they had like 5 people checking passports on that side. That made us getting on the ship take even longer than the other people. Not a huge problem the world needs to be concerned about. I'm just describing what happened. So I checked the timestamp on the videos, and we actually boarded the ship about 80 minutes after our boarding time, which honestly is not that bad. I am not on the ship. I am not on the ship.
Keep walking.
I am on the ship. I've had times where it's taken much longer, but usually it takes much shorter than that. And there's a lot of factors that need to be considered here. A lot of it could have to do with the local staff. A lot of it could have to do with the ship not being approved in time. And I don't know why it happened this day, but that's what happened. Once we did board the ship, there was a separate elevator that was being held for Haven guests only. That was nice because there were a lot of people waiting for the other elevators. We were brought directly up to the floor that our cabin was on, and our butler came with us to our cabin, introduced us to all the features, showed us how the lights work and those things. The curtains are on an automatic system. She talked about how often the treats are delivered, where we can find other amenities. And my first impression of this cabin was and is that it is a very tasteful, modern, high-end design. Marcus! There are some dark wood features, some very stable furniture. We have real, padded chairs and a full table on the balcony. It is very, very nice. And of course, in the upcoming weeks here on the Very Unofficial Travel Guides, I'll be doing a full tour, a very detailed tour of this cabin, because there's a lot to talk about. But just suffice to say, yeah, this does feel like an elevated level compared to a standard balcony cabin or even a club balcony suite, which was what we stayed in the last time we cruised with NCL. So I'll definitely be making a comparison of those two also coming up soon here on the channel. And after that, the cruise began.
Why does it sound like I feel like a stranger? It's like I'm surprised by the good things in life. Funny how you clear out all the noise in my head. Starting to think you might know me better than all of my friends. We still smile when we fight, and when I cry there's no wise, you just simply can't.
And there's going to be a lot more to show you about this experience in the Haven. My first time and most likely the last time that I'll be staying in this cabin category. So if you're interested in seeing more about what this is like, how this experience progresses, what I think NCL is doing right about having this category at this price, and of course also what I think they're not doing right, because you know, that's what I do here. Then make sure you're subscribed and check back soon. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides. Bye-bye.